were ancient alien remains found in Peru. This is All Things Creepy. Let's begin. So as recently as September 13th, 2023, these supposedly mummified remains of alien life forms were presented to a congress in Mexico. The presenter claiming that they are genuine, they are dated, carbon dated to 1,000 years old, and were found in Peru along the Nazca lines during some sort of excavation. Now, in terms of appearance, they are mummified or skeletal at the very least. That classic chalky fossilized look, small, the size of maybe even a baby to a small toddler, with large heads, elongated limbs, and other than that, a fairly proportionate body. But you can quite clearly see the skeletal structure of these creatures. So if you haven't heard of them, the Nazca Lines, where allegedly these aliens were excavated, is in Peru. They're large, supposedly man-made structures that appear to resemble large animals, things like that. There's one that's a monkey, but they're massive in scale, so the idea that you can only see them from above, of course, draws a lot into question, because they were built sometime between 500 AD and 500 BC by the ancient peoples of Peru. So the fact of the matter is they'd have never been actually able to see what they'd created. So of course the inclination is that perhaps they were building it for something that could see it, something that was flying. Now, whether that's aliens or gods, that's for a separate video, but allegedly this is where these aliens were found. It's also nearby a location called Paracas in Peru, where the infamous Paracas alien skulls were recovered, those strange elongated heads. And of course the debate there for those elongated heads were, some of them appeared to have been tied. So you'd get a young child, tie a string around the top of their head, and as they develop and their head grows, it creates that elongated shape, fabricates it. But there were some where the actual volume of the brain case was larger, implying that maybe naturally these heads were this shape, because of course the ones that had been manipulated, they had the same volume as a human skull, but those other ones had a human skull's volume plus a little bit extra from the elongated head, implying at the very least some sort of genetic difference between the modern humans that we have, and of course in wider speculation that they were some kind of alien or hybrid. An alien hybrid is what the presenter of these new fossilized remains is claiming. He's claiming that these have a mixture of human and quote-unquote non-human DNA. What that means exactly, who knows? I mean, non-human DNA, there's a lot of things on Earth that are non-human, so to leap from that to alien is a bit of a stretch, but that's the information that we've got. Now, the presentation of this information comes in light of the new massive UAP/UFO resurgence, where some very credible sources have been reporting government information that UFOs have been sighted, have been recovered, and even non-human, there's that word again, bodies have been recovered from crash sites. So it's very likely that this has been brought to the Congress in Mexico because of that, because these were initially found in 2017, allegedly. Now, the guy who found them, Jamie Maussan, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, he's been a long time UFO enthusiast. So naturally, he's potentially a little bit biased. There is some historical controversies with him as well, and yeah, he's not necessarily the most reliable source. This is not the same as some innocent random farmer finding these remains in his back garden and presenting them to the government. This is someone who actively seeks out these kind of things and is quite deep in the scene. Now, I've done some digging, and of course, complete and thorough analysis of these specimens is going to be taken into account, of course, to find out the truth of what they are. the initial mass spectrometry results that determined they were 1,000 years old back in 2017 only really determined the age. So although it's speculated that these aren't human remains, it's difficult to say with certainty. There have been instances of mummified children being assumed to be aliens before. But in my opinion, and based on my analysis and research and watching a few other videos out there, I think this is probably an amalgamation of different animal bones, and that of course would explain why there wouldn't be a human result on any testing. This is what's called in archaeology a chimera. It was used a lot in the bone wars during the excavation of dinosaur bones. There was a bit of a rivalry going on between two excavators, and they would ultimately end up combining different parts of different dinosaur bones to create the biggest and most impressive specimen. And in some cases that was probably innocent, but a lot of it was down to money. So I think that's probably what's happened in this case. Someone has taken an amalgamation of different bones, put them together and claimed it's a creature. Now, some of the bones, the joints, appear to be broken and forced together, which of course is alarming. That's not how biology works, unless this alien race are very into snapping bones off and replacing them with others. Very far-fetched. And then of course we come to the notorious head of this creature. It is interesting. It seems to have the classical structure, the big eyes, maybe a nose and a mouth, but after some digging and watching some informative videos on YouTube and all over the place, it looks like this is most likely the back of an alpaca or llama skull, maybe a young one. And of course you're thinking, how is that possible? Well, here is one of those skulls. If you simply remove the front part and just keep the brain case, you've got something that's made out of bone, so instantly fits the skeletal remains. But even more interestingly, where the veins and arteries attach, there are these attachment points and notches in the skull that very closely resemble perhaps the front of a skull, elements that could be misconstrued as a face, and they look a lot like the face of these alleged creatures. Now, this is a classic example, I think, of someone finding this piece of llama skull and thinking, that looks a lot like a face. I wonder what else I could do with that. Sticking all the pieces together and then having those big dollar signs in their eyes. Especially considering alpacas and llamas are from the same area. They can be found in Peru. So it is quite suspicious. I think that's probably the case here, unfortunately. And it is a real shame because naturally we have all of those UAP and UFO very credible sources that are being investigated, which could yield some good results. And then you've got this guy trying to put out a chimera, a bunch of random bones, probably to make a quick profit. Maybe he doesn't know and someone else has sold this to him or tricked him or planted this in the excavation site. But either way, it's definitely not a good look for the UFO community. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is all just coincidence, and once it's thoroughly analysed, we'll find out that this is an alien life form. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Is there anything I've missed? Do you have any interesting insights on this? And of course, if you have any other weird videos that you want me to watch, let me know in the comments below. Like the video if you did, share it with a friend, and of course, if you haven't already, subscribe for more creepy content.